Hey, what is good, fellow game developers? It's me, Ba, and I'm here with a little series I decided to make in order to show the entire process of making a game. And by making a game, specifically, I mean the decision-making process, my thought process, and the actual creation process as well. So I'm not really going to go over the specifics of how I code things, how I model them. I'm going to tell you what I did, what tutorials I followed, and how I set it all up. But really, this is for someone that has never made a game all the way through before and feels like it's a little daunting to really get started. So a part of that is I'm going to be showing every part that I make, like day by day, including any spoilers. So that's tough, I guess. And just fair warning, I'm recording this in my car, and it's really cold outside and kind of windy, so you might hear that. So apologies, because I know the recording quality is not going to be great. So I decided that I wanted to make a game entirely by myself. I've done it before, I enjoy doing it, and I also realized that for our club, it's going to be useful to show the entire process, especially because I know some of us haven't really made a full game before. So I want you to see this, and don't, try and copy it one-to-one unless you feel like that might work, but I'm just showing my process in hopes that it'll help you figure out your own. So for me, the process started very simply. I just needed to have an idea, and everyone knows what they say about good ideas. Someone else already had it first, so I decided to just take someone else's. And by that I mean I decided that I'd take a game I thought was cool and kind of simple, and then try and make my own version of it, like hijack it. So there's an old couple of Doom wads called Ghouls Forest. There's 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm sure there's plenty of fan ones. And basically, the plot is you're in a forest while a PNG attacks you. Very Nextbot core, kind of like Gmod Nextbots. Same idea, honestly. The first thing I did actually, okay, that's a lie. This is not the first thing I did. I kind of started it first, but then I realized I should really play the games. So I did that, and I took notes on them, what I liked and didn't like. So I'll talk about the Ghouls Forest games, pros, and their cons, and I'm probably going to have a lot of footage from these games in the background because I don't have that much to show yet. So, for the pros, I thought the atmosphere was cool, the gameplay aligned pretty well with the tone and premise. I liked that you kind of had to be precise, and it was scary. You were looking around, you didn't know where it was coming from, but you had to land the shot or else it was going to get you. I thought that was cool. And in the third one specifically, the enemies changed. Once you killed one, a new one spawned, and it actually approached you differently. It interacted with the player in a different way, which did a lot for keeping it scary, which is an important thing. So like some variety kept things a lot scarier than, no variety at all. I also thought the map was pretty spooky. I thought that it worked for what it was. The weapons you held felt powerless because they couldn't fire fast. This is most obvious in the third installment where you had a bow, but ironically in the first and second you could get it. Well, in the first you could get a ton of weapons, and in the second you had the super shotgun, which is typically a very powerful weapon, but it just felt so weak because it fired so slow, which really heightened the anxiety. It made me feel very powerless even with that powerful weapon. There was also a good amount of downtime, which heightened the anxiety. There were some points where I felt like it was too much, but also the other time, it worked for what it was because I was sitting there in suspense. I thought the ambience was really good, like the soundtrack was pretty good, and it's very short. It doesn't really overstay its welcome, which I thought was good. Now, getting to the cons, the game felt kind of aimless. There's like not really that much to do besides wander until you get jump scared, especially in the first two, because that was the whole game, is wander until you get jump scared, and if you can, try and kill it. It was also way too dark, and this is a massive pet peeve of mine, is in horror games, they just make it so dark that you can't see a thing, which is just more frustrating than anything else to me. Also, in all three of them, you would die in one hit, which sucked so bad. It kind of threw the fun for me, so I actually started save scumming just so I could like get through it, because getting insta-killed didn't feel rewarding. It was just too punishing, and that's my other point, is it's just way too punishing. You should be able to make a mistake or two and not instantly die. That almost ruined the scares for me, is because you die once and then you know everything that's going to happen. And it's like, whatever. At this point, I don't know that I care. Which I think is probably a big problem in horror games, is like, how do you keep it being scary? And that was the main issue of the first two games. They stopped being scary really fast. However, the third game actually was scary. I killed the first one, and then all of a sudden, Jitter Skull comes at me, and he plays entirely differently, so I freaked out. I got genuinely scared. And then the third guy came at you, he's totally different, and then the fourth. I liked that variety. That helped it be scary still, even after a while. The map had nothing really there in the games, though. That was kind of another issue, is I would explore and I didn't feel like I found anything. I know in the third game there is stuff to find. I didn't really find it, though, because I feel like the third game almost incentivizes staying around the campfire because there's so much room to move, and like backtracking was difficult because you'd run into a wall. So I just ended up staying around that main circle. And then the biggest issue is like there's no incentive to not find a wall, put your back to it, and wait for the enemy to come to you. You have no reason to do anything else, which kind of ruined the game in a way for me. Like, I think the game is still good, and it's cool, and I still want to do this, but that was probably the biggest struggle I had with it, is after playing for a little while, I kind of just realized, like, okay, the optimal play style is to camp, which is not that fun, so I would like to avoid that in my game. So, moving on from actual Ghouls Forest, let's talk about what we've got going on. So from here, I decided a few things. I wanted a 3D first-person shooter type game, where you could move fast, there'd be one enemy, and you'd have a weapon that reloaded slowly and rewarded accuracy. I also decided that I wanted to make it in the Godot engine, because that's the engine I had the most familiarity with. So I started working on it. I was going to start this game project the 14th of November and finish it by the 28th of December at the latest. I was going to make most of the player mechanics the first week, try to finish the enemy mechanics the following week. The intention here is to have a minimum viable product, or MVP, done by the end of the second week. After that, I do further refining of the player and enemy for a little bit, about half a week, just to make sure they're working properly. Then, I'm going to put all my focus into finishing the player, making their models, animations, and sound effects. I'd have about a week for that. And then after that, I was going to begin work on the enemy, doing the same, although for much more time. I decided that because the enemy is kind of the main focus, you can see a lot more of it at all times, and it's supposed to be scary, so I figure it deserves a little more work. And then nearing the end, I'll start working on the menus and just wrapping everything up. The reason I'm planning it out like this is because I'm not much of a 3D modeler or animator. Those are probably my weakest points, and I want to push myself to become better at those things. That's why I have kind of a focus on that. And I'm going to actually show off my calendar that I made, show what I'm trying to do for each day, let all you see it. You'll notice that I do have about 2-ish days each week set aside for making these devlogs. It's not every week because, I'm going to try and have these ready for club meetings, and we have a lot of breaks and finals and stuff coming up. Anyway, so I'll show that off. You can take a look. You can pause it, say what you think in the comments, whatever. And honestly, at this point, I actually really did not have much of a story put together at all. I just knew I wanted to have a gameplay like Ghouls Forest, and I had a vague idea of the enemy being like a big tumorous mask of dogs, kind of based off the creepypasta Dogscape, which I like, but I don't know that I want to recommend to anyone. And honestly, I just started getting to work. I only actually have worked on this game for about 2 days at this point, so this section will be shorter than it'll probably be in the rest of these. So, day 1, which was November 14th, 2024, I did all my planning, I created a schedule, and I also made the player movement. And I'll just read the notes I took that day because I did have a journal going, so I'll read that journal for you now. Today was an important day. I planned out the whole project. I did this by looking at each main part I would need to make the game: the player, the enemy, and the map. I broke down which each of those things would need. Then I made a schedule that will help me to get each finished in a timely manner, so I can get this game out by December 28th, 2024. In terms of actual game creation, I started the project and made a test level with 4 points of reference and created a 3D character controller. It was important to me that the character felt like the original Doom, so I didn't include a jump. I made the character fast and made the character's head bob when moving. There's no sprint button because sprinting is the default. One aspect I added was that the player's field of view would actually get smaller while running, just to add a little bit of anxiety. I had to toy with the variables a lot until I got it to look right because I was worried about the player getting motion sick. I had some issues with making the player move in the direction of the camera because Godot didn't understand that the player's head had a vector 3 as well, but I fixed that. Not too many hiccups today though. I didn't record the entire process, which is likely a misstep. And I actually didn't record the process for the second day either because my computer crashed in the middle of me recording and it was just being a massive hassle, so I kind of just gave up on that. But I'll still show off the code and everything I have in the game just to give you a rough idea. And I also had a YouTube tutorial that I followed. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I have it linked here. I'll show it off in the video. Day 2, November 15th, 2024. I had an idea for a phone, added a shooting system, added bullet holes, and added a stand-in for the gun. Last night, I had an idea for something to add to the game. I want the game to have an incredibly minimal HUD, thinking of something like Dead Space, where it shows the character's health on his back. The less menus that were there, the better in my mind for immersion. So, I thought instead of having a pause menu, the player could have a flip phone where they could get out and text someone that they're done as the quit button. Could be cool and also kind of stressful because it wouldn't actually pause the game. I was also thinking of including the tutorials in that phone. Today, I added a shooting system. I actually kind of pieced the code together myself using the documentation for Godot. Initially, I wanted to just add a raycast node, but then I decided to add it via code, and I'm glad I did. It took a while to make things make sense together, but I got it to work. I also added bullet holes, and I did so using a tutorial I found online. I also added in a terrible stand-in for a gun, just as a reference point for the gun and if it was reloaded or not. I want the gun to shoot once and reload slowly, and I think that's worked so far. My computer ended up crashing mid-recording, so I had to give up on recording everything for today. And I also followed 2 tutorials, which I'll show the first one and the second one, and I'm going to try to have links in the description, but YouTube makes that a really big hassle, so you might just have to look these up, so I apologize. Maybe I'll make a playlist on my channel. So far, I'm on track for the game. I've had new ideas, and some of them I want to add. Others I'm probably going to have to cut out because I won't be able to properly flesh them out as much as I want to. Some of them being interactions, like pressing E to interact with stuff. I think I'm going to cut that. And there's going to be more that will have to be cut. I'm sure there's also more that's going to be added. I'm probably going to have to cut out the cell phone idea. It just depends on how much I can get done and if I stay on track. I really hope I can keep it though, because I think it's cool and would be interesting. Anyways, we haven't really talked story for my game, or really what's going on, and that's actually a really important aspect of game development, and it's one I think I'm not awesome at integrating into my games. I do like to write them, and I think I can write them well, but I don't know how to portray that to the player. So this is going to take some work for me. First off, I actually do have a story idea for this. And I'm going to give you some background for where I got this idea. I used to work at a doggy daycare, and I really love pugs. They're sweet, sweet dogs, but the problem is they're just horribly sick in so many ways. Mostly because they're really incredibly inbred, so their lives are actually very painful. I honestly kind of dislike people that buy pugs from breeders, because it's like, why are you causing more of these animals to exist when their existence is pain, right? And I especially dislike pug breeders, because why are you doing this? For money? Like, is it okay? I don't know, we don't need to get into that, but that's just my feelings, and I understand not everyone's going to feel the same way. But I decided to make this game kind of about breeders, and in their inbred dogs. The main enemy is going to be called the pug, and it's a result of years of inbreeding, and eventually it led to a dog that can absorb other dogs into like this horrible mass. Obviously, this is very realistic and scientific. The player is going to be basically a member of Super Animal Control, like Secret Awesome Animal Control, SCP Animal Control. And you're called in to get rid of the pug and make sure that things stay generally under wraps. So you do that. That is the plot so far. Pretty solid, right? I want to include some stuff like environmental storytelling about the breeder and like who they were, what they were doing, unethical experiments, very umbrella corporation. And right now I'm thinking of calling the game Dog's Day. Please clap. Thank you. Hit like. So I do have a little worry about calling it Dog's Day, is I know that Poppy Playtime had a character called that, and I don't want to get them too mixed up, so I might not call it this, but for now that's the working title. If you have any better ideas, let me know. Anyways, that is Devlog 1. I'll see you back in about 2 weeks, because Thanksgiving is next week, and I'll see you all next meeting. Let me know if you have any thoughts on how I should do this better, and hopefully I can get a better recording quality for the next time. Appreciate y'all, and I wish you luck in your own games that you make. Bye-bye.